I, 18, female at the time, found out real quick that my stepdad Greg, 48, male, did not see my future the same way he saw my siblings. He married my mom when I was 9. My real dad passed away when I was 6, and for a while Greg seemed like a decent guy. He did not try too hard, but he was not cold either, just kind of there. Greg had 2 kids from a previous marriage, Logan, 33, male, and Maddie, 25, female. And then he and my mom had Ava, 21, female. We all lived together and did regular family stuff. I always thought of them as my siblings, never half this or half that. But once college got involved, the lines between his kids and my mom's kid became real obvious. Since I was a kid, I've loved cooking. Not just making cookies or whatever, I was obsessed. I'd spend weekends in the kitchen trying out new recipes, watched hours of cooking shows, took cooking classes on my own when I could. I got into a top culinary school straight out of high school and was so proud. It was ranked super high and had grads working in crazy successful restaurants. I thought Greg would be impressed. He'd always talked about how education was the best investment and all that. But the second I showed him the acceptance letter, he barely reacted, just gave a little shrug and went back to whatever he was doing. I figured maybe he did not get it, so I brought it up again later, explaining the program, how it could really turn into a solid career. And that's when he said something like, "I'm not paying thousands so you can go play chef." And just like that, it was clear. He did not take it seriously. He didn't think it was a real job. To him, it was a hobby, not worth spending money on. Meanwhile, Logan had his entire tuition paid for. He was at a state college doing business, and Greg was also covering his rent and books. Maddie still had years of school left, but Greg had already started a college fund for her. Ava had one too, and she was in first grade. But me, nothing. Just silence and eye rolls whenever I brought it up. I even overheard him one night telling my mom that culinary school was a waste and not a smart investment. That one really stung. My mom tried to step in. She wanted to use her own savings to help me, but Greg shot it down. He said I'd end up jobless and in debt. Said I'd be working in a diner flipping pancakes. That stuck in my head for a long time. I ended up working 2 jobs after graduation, one at a bakery, one at a pizza place. I was saving whatever I could while everyone else I knew was heading off to college. Greg still sent Logan money every month and gave him career advice like he was mentoring a CEO. I failed a souffle once and Greg made a snide comment like, "Good thing I did not pay for that." At family dinners, it was the same vibe. Logan talked about business classes and internships. Maddie talked about animals and science fairs. Ava showed off spelling bee trophies. I barely got asked how I was doing. If I did talk about work, Greg would change the subject or act bored. The worst was when I heard him introduce me to someone as my wife's daughter who's figuring things out. I was working 60+ hours a week and had gotten into culinary school, but apparently it was still just drifting in his eyes. Eventually, I found a cheaper culinary program and got in with some loans and a scholarship. It was not the dream school, but it was still a big deal. I was learning so much and working part-time to cover bills. It was exhausting, but worth it. I finally felt like I was building something for myself. Still, Greg never cared, never asked how school was going, never mentioned anything about it. Even when a food blog featured my work, after I helped cater a big event, he just said, "Nice," when my mom sent it to him. That was it. So yeah, I kept going. I finished culinary school, worked my way up in kitchens, saved aggressively, and eventually opened my first small cafe. That turned into a second location, then a third. I'm 33 now and I own 3 restaurants. One's a bakery cafe, one's mid-range comfort food, and one's a fancier reservation-only dinner spot. None of it happened overnight. I had my fair share of screw-ups, lost money on things I thought would work but did not, cried in walk-ins more times than I'll ever admit, but I got here. No help from Greg, no trust fund, no investment. In all that time, I barely spoke to him, maybe a couple of short hellos at family events. He never reached out to ask how I was doing and never commented when my name was in the paper or when one of my places made a best of list. No congratulations, no acknowledgement. Not that I needed it at that point. I had let go of the idea that he'd ever respect what I did. And then a few months ago, out of nowhere, he called. I honestly stared at the name on the screen for a few seconds before answering. It had been so long and it felt weird, and yeah, the call was not small talk. He got straight to the point. His finances were wrecked. One of those investments he was so proud of back in the day had flopped. And apparently that was not the only one. Turns out Greg had put most of his savings into risky ventures, thinking they'd secured his retirement. He'd even refinanced his house at one point, thinking the return would be worth it. It was not. Everything had fallen through. He was in debt, behind on payments, and the little consulting work he had been doing on the side had dried up. He was panicking. He needed help. He mentioned Logan and Maddie, said they were busy and not in a place to help. Ava was still in college. My mom was retired and on a fixed income, so he was coming to me. The same person he once said would never make a career out of cooking. The same person whose dream was not worth the investment. Now I was the one he hoped would bail him out. I did not say yes. I did not say no. I just said I needed a few days to think, and I did. I did not want to be petty. I did not want to kick him when he was down, but I also did not want to just hand over money to someone who never believed in me, who actively chose not to help me when I needed it. I knew I'd be paying out of pocket, not because he was family or because I cared, but out of guilt or obligation or pressure, and that did not sit right with me. So I made a decision. I called him back and said that while I was not comfortable just giving him money, I could help in another way. One of my locations had a cashier role open. It was a stable position, front of house, weekday shifts, good team, decent pay, nothing fancy, but enough to keep him afloat. I offered to cover transportation if he needed it. He'd get staff meals, access to some basic benefits, and it would be consistent income while he figured things out. I was not trying to insult him. I was offering what I had, actual tangible support. Not a check that would disappear in a month, but a job that could buy him time. He did not take it well. He got pissed, said it was disrespectful, that he had a degree, years of experience, that he used to manage teams and budgets and projects, that working a register was beneath him. He made it sound like I had offered him a job scrubbing toilets. I did not argue. I just told him that's what I could offer. If he wanted it, the position was his. If not, I understood. But I was not going to be his personal bank. That was the last time we talked, and since then I have heard from my mom that Greg's been telling people I humiliated him, said I rubbed my success in his face. Apparently he's been going around saying I refused to help, and a couple extended family members even messaged me to say I should have just given him something, that I was being cold, that family helps family even if they weren't perfect in the past. But here's the thing. He was not just imperfect. He made a choice when I was 18. He looked at my dream and decided it did not matter. He backed the others, paid for their schools, praised their paths, celebrated their achievements, and left me out of that circle entirely. I worked ridiculous hours, lived off instant noodles, and clawed my way into an industry that chews people up. He did not lift a finger. Now that I am stable, now that I made something of myself, now I'm supposed to pretend none of that happened? I did not offer him the job as revenge. I did not do it to make a point. It was the most honest way I could help, but because it did not come with zero effort and endless gratitude, it was not good enough. And here's what really gets me. If I had failed, if I had ended up broke and struggling, Greg wouldn't have helped. I know that in my gut. He would have said I brought it on myself, that I did not make the right decisions, that I should have chosen a real career. He would have used my failure to justify everything he believed back then. So no, I do not feel bad for offering what I did, and honestly, I think a lot of people in my position would have offered less. Still, the guilt creeps in sometimes. My mom's stuck in the middle, and I hate that for her. Part of me wonders if I should have just written the check to keep the peace, but another part of me knows that if I start giving in now, it'll never stop. So, AITA for offering my stepdad a cashier job instead of just giving him money when he asked me for help. Update 1. Help. I did not expect the post to blow up the way it did. I thought a few people might read it, weigh in and move on. Instead, it turned into a whole thing. Since then, things have escalated a lot. First, let's start with Greg. After he rejected the cashier job, again, a decent, honest job that paid more than minimum wage, including free meals and had zero cleaning toilets involved, he doubled down on his victim act. I found out from my mom that he told literally everyone that I offered him the job in front of staff, that I mocked him, and that I called him a failure to his face. None of that ever happened. He even told one of my aunts that I made him fill out a paper application like a teenager at McDonald's. And I laughed at him in the middle of the restaurant, which is wild because the only conversation we had was over the phone and it lasted maybe 10 minutes. For a while, I kept quiet. I did not respond to anyone. I did not defend myself. But then 2 of my cousins messaged me, basically accusing me of turning my back on the man who raised you. One even suggested I humiliated him to get back at him for not funding your little cooking thing. Okay, that was the last straw, so I screenshotted the messages from Greg. Yes, I still had the texts where he said, "I can't believe you think offering me a cashier job is help." And the follow-up message where he said, "I did not spend 30 years building a career to stand behind a counter and ring up burgers." I posted the screenshots in our family group chat with one line. Here's what really happened since the story seems to be changing. Cue the chaos. Half the family was dead silent and the other half exploded. A few of my younger cousins actually backed me up. Turns out they'd heard Greg badmouth me for years, calling my career a waste of time, even after my restaurants took off. One of my uncles told Greg off in the group chat and said he was lucky I even offered to help. Greg left the chat. My mom called me later, torn between laughing and panicking. She said Greg was furious, said I had broadcast his shame and disrespected him publicly. Then he did the pettiest thing imaginable. He posted a vague status on Facebook about how real men do not beg their children for help, and how humiliation is the price of trusting the wrong people. And he used a photo of himself standing in front of a help wanted sign as the image. I am not kidding. I did not respond, not to the post, not to the drama, but a few days later I heard from someone who works at a local diner, not mine, that Greg had actually gone in and asked for work as a cashier. Yes, the same exact job he called insulting when I offered it. The kicker? He lasted 2 days before quitting because the manager was younger than him and he did not like being told what to do. At this point, I'm done trying to make sense of it. He wanted help. I offered help. He did not like the kind of help, so he turned it into a pity campaign. But I'm not losing sleep over it. Business is good. Staff morale is solid. The cashier position got filled by a lovely woman named Anita, who brings homemade chai to every shift and never complains about anything. And the family, they've split into 3 groups. 1, the "she did the right thing" crew. 2, the "he's old and you should have just given him money" people. 3, and the "just do not involve me" crowd. I did not expect any of this, but if I have learned anything, it's that some people only respect you when they think you're below them, and when you rise, they either pretend they helped or punish you for outgrowing them. Anyway, thanks to everyone who weighed in before. I have got 0 regrets now. But for real, who walks out on a job twice because they do not want to take orders from someone younger? Should I be worried he's about to open a competing diner called "Real Men Do Not Cook"? Update 2. So remember how I said I was done with the drama? Yeah, I should have known better. About a week after the whole group chat fiasco and Greg's sad Facebook poetry post, my mom asked if I'd host a private family dinner at my more upscale restaurant. It was not anything huge, just a quiet get-together for her birthday with about 15 guests. She wanted it low-key, nothing over the top. I said, of course. Blocked off a section of the dining room, planned the menu myself, and even brought in my pastry chef to make her favorite lemon tart. Everything was going fine. Everyone showed up on time, dressed nicely, behaved. Even the cousins who were Team Greg were being civil. Mom was happy, the food was flowing, and for a few hours it felt like maybe we could all just act like adults for once. And then Greg walked in. Uninvited, he strolled through the front door in a blazer and jeans like he owned the place. He was not on the guest list. No one had told him about the dinner. He must have heard about it through someone else and decided to make a gesture. I was in the back, plating desserts, when one of my servers rushed in and said, there's an older guy with grey hair trying to give a speech in the middle of the room. And yeah, it was exactly what it sounded like. Greg had stood up at the end of the table, raised a wine glass he hadn't paid for, and started talking loudly to everyone. It started with some generic crap about family being stronger than pride, and then it turned into a half apology, half lecture. He said something like, "Some people in this room may have lost their way, but it's never too late to do the right thing on both sides. And I'm choosing forgiveness even if others can't see past their egos." I could not believe what I was hearing. He was trying to make me look like the bitter one, like I had caused the rift, like he was the peacemaker rising above it all while standing in my restaurant uninvited, making a scene at my mother's birthday. So I stepped out, calmly told him this was a private dinner, asked him to leave. He smirked and said I was being immature and that I should let him finish because people need to hear this. Nope. I signaled my floor manager, who quietly called our off-duty security guy who lives 2 blocks away and can be at the restaurant in under 5 minutes. Bless him. Greg kept talking. My aunt tried to tell him to sit down. My mom looked mortified, and the room was dead silent except for his voice echoing off the marble walls. Security showed up, asked him to leave, and after some chest puffing and grumbling, he finally walked out, but not before yelling, "I hope you're proud of what you've become. This is who you are now?" And yeah, I am proud. I'm proud that I did not let him hijack the night. Proud that I did not snap. Proud that my mom still got her lemon tart in peace. But it did not stop there. 3 days later, I got an email from a lawyer, allegedly Greg's. It was one of those passive-aggressive pre-lawsuit emails accusing me of defamation of character for sharing his text in the family group chat and publicly humiliating him by having him removed from my restaurant. There was also some nonsense about emotional distress and how I intentionally sabotaged his standing within the extended family. I forwarded it to my own lawyer, who almost laughed reading it. There's no case. The messages were real. The removal was justified and it was a private event, but it still pissed me off. Now he's threatening to sue, not because he actually believes he has a case, but because he wants to stir the pot and play the victim even harder. And it's working, sort of. A few more family members have reached out. Some are asking me to apologize, just to make peace. Others are saying I'm being vindictive. One even said I'm acting like a high school mean girl with a restaurant, which I'll admit is kind of a hilarious insult if you ignore the context. And here's the part that no one seems to say out loud. He hasn't actually apologized, not once. Not for dismissing my entire career, not for refusing to support me when I was 18, not for bad-mouthing me to the family, not for lying about what I offered him, not even for showing up and hijacking my mom's dinner. All I have gotten is manipulation dressed up as moral superiority, and I'm over it. Also, quick side note, the server that Greg rudely brushed past when entering the dining room? He's 19, first job, still learning the ropes. Greg muttered something to him about getting a real job under his breath when the kid tried to stop him. That's the man who thinks working as a cashier is beneath him. You know what's beneath me? This level of drama. But here we are. I do not know what's next. Maybe he'll really try to sue. Maybe he'll write another weird Facebook poem. Maybe he'll show up at my next restaurant opening and do a full TED talk about being betrayed by his chef daughter. But honestly, I'm done playing nice. I offered help once. He spit on it. Then he made it his mission to twist the story until he came out looking holy. And now I'm supposed to just let it slide? Not anymore. Update 3. So, remember how I said I was done with the drama? Again? Yeah, that did not age well. A week after I got the passive-aggressive pre-lawsuit email from Greg's lawyer, I figured it was just a scare tactic. Something to rattle me, maybe guilt me into apologizing or wiring him money to make it all go away. I did not take it seriously, neither did my lawyer, until he actually filed the lawsuit. Yes, Greg officially filed a lawsuit against me for defamation, emotional distress, and, this part is rich, intentional sabotage of character in a familial and professional context. I laughed when I saw the words professional context. Greg hasn't been professionally relevant since the flip phone era. The man invested in an e-bike rental startup in the suburbs. It never even launched, but once the filing became public record, that's when it got weird. Because apparently a local journalist who covers small business stories caught wind of it. I'm somewhat known in the food scene in my city. My restaurants have been in magazines and local papers. So now there's buzz around local restaurateur sued by estranged stepfather over family feud. The article ran with the headline, "From burner to burned. Chef's stepfather sues her after refusing job offer." But the internet did what the internet does. Someone, probably one of my younger cousins who was there, leaked the footage of Greg's forgiveness speech at my mom's birthday dinner. I did not even know someone had recorded it, but there he was. Crystal clear audio, standing under the warm bulbs at table 7, saying, "Some people can't let go of their egos, but I forgive you." The video went viral on TikTok, like full-blown viral. The comments were brutal. Imagine crashing your ex-stepdaughter's event to make yourself the victim. He said, "I forgive you," like he's the one who got abandoned. "I'd rather be a cashier than this man." Plot twist. She did offer him help and he threw it away. People started digging and guess what surfaced? Greg's bankruptcy filing from last year. Turns out he'd quietly filed to reorganize his debts after his final future investment collapsed. It was public record. The man suing me for emotional damage over a cashier job had literally lost 3 businesses in 5 years and still thought I owed him dignity. Now people are really paying attention. I have been contacted by 2 reporters. One wants to do a feature on restaurant owners overcoming adversity. The other asked if I'd be open to telling the full story behind the viral video. I haven't said yes to either, but Greg's furious. My mom called me last night crying because he said I ruined his legacy. What legacy? The one where he alienated half his family and failed to support the one stepkid who made it and now tries to sue her out of spite? Oh, and here's the latest twist. I found out he's trying to pitch a book. Yes, a book. Apparently he's approached a ghostwriter and is claiming the whole situation is a teachable story about pride, regret, and rebuilding broken family bonds. According to a cousin who overheard a phone call, he wants to call it something like The Cost of Silence or When Forgiveness is Not Enough. I nearly choked on my coffee when I heard that. He's actively trying to profit off the exact same situation he's suing me for. He's framing himself as the misunderstood father figure trying to reconcile with a fame-hungry daughter too proud to reconnect. You cannot make this stuff up. Meanwhile, back in reality, my restaurants are thriving. We just got shortlisted for a regional food award. Our holiday bookings are filling up. Staff morale, solid. Customers, loyal. But still, this whole thing is a cloud I did not ask for. I did not want the attention. I did not want my personal life dragged through family group chats, legal filings, and TikTok trends. All I ever did was offer a man a job. A job he said was beneath him, and now I am the villain in his public tragedy. Look, I know people are messy. I know families can be complicated, but at some point, you stop mistaking noise for love. You stop bending over backwards for someone who never clapped when you stood tall. And you sure as hell stop apologizing for outgrowing the version of you they preferred. Quiet, grateful, dependent. Greg preferred me when I needed him. Now that I do not, suddenly I'm cruel, arrogant, the villain in his redemption arc. Anyway, the hearing's in 2 months and my lawyer is confident it'll be thrown out. But if he wants a courtroom drama, I'm ready. I have got receipts, witnesses, and a reputation I actually built. Update 4. So I promised myself that I'd write one last update when this whole saga officially ended. Well, it ended. Greg's ridiculous lawsuit? Dismissed. Thrown out. Within 10 minutes of the first hearing, the judge literally asked if we were seriously here because I offered someone a legal job and they took offense. My lawyer did not even have to go through all the evidence we prepared. The TikTok video, the text messages, the group chat screenshots, none of it needed. The court barely took it seriously. Case closed, 0 damages, 0 merit. But Greg? Oh, he did not take the loss quietly. He stormed out of the courtroom like he was the one wronged. And later that night he posted a long, unhinged rant on Facebook about false justice and the daughter who sold her soul for clout. I did not respond. Neither did anyone else. He got 5 likes. 2 from people who probably did not even read it, 1 from a bot, and 1 from a guy who tried to sell us all cryptocurrency last year. Now, here's where things get poetic. I have been quietly working on opening my 4th restaurant, more modern, open concept, brunch heavy menu with a late night dessert bar. We secured the lease last year, but construction delays pushed it back, and guess where it's located? The same shopping plaza where Greg now works as part-time mall security. I did not plan it that way. It was not some evil revenge scheme. The space was perfect, great location, heavy foot traffic, decent rent. It was not until we started moving in that someone on my team said, "Is not that your stepdad walking around in a security vest?" I looked up from my coffee and there he was, clipboard in hand, pretending he did not see me. To be fair, he never sees me now. He walks past the restaurant windows like they are tinted black. If I'm out front talking to guests, he stares down at his shoes and changes direction. Once I smiled and nodded just to mess with him, and he practically moonwalked into the vitamin store next door. He will not acknowledge me, will not speak to me, will not even exist in the same space, which is honestly perfect. I have had closure since the moment he filed the lawsuit and lost. This just adds a layer of sweet, golden brown karma on top. My mom divorced him. She came to the soft opening and saw him walking by. She just rolled her eyes and said, "He's lucky you did not put his face on the menu under regret du jour." Meanwhile, the restaurant is already doing great. Social media buzz picked up again after people realized this was the spot owned by the chef from the viral dad lawsuit. We learned in a little subtle, not tacky, we have a cocktail called the Ego Trip and a dessert called Served Cold. People get it. As for Greg's book, never happened. The ghostwriter bailed, apparently after reading the court documents. He posted once more about publishing independently, but nothing ever came out. I suspect he realized no one wanted a story where the hero is a man bitter that his stepdaughter succeeded without him. So now he's 64, standing in the same plaza where I own a business, pretending I'm invisible while I serve customers, sign paychecks, and keep moving forward. He could have been part of this journey. He could have been proud. He could have eaten free for life. Instead, he's pacing past the very thing he said would go nowhere, while wearing a name badge with someone else's logo on his chest. Tell me that's not karma with a side of fries. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.